Hello, this is Bob Gray Sr. Welcome to Ministry Moments. Lord willing, every Friday, 3 o'clock Central Time, we'll be coming to you with this broadcast. And you can go to Ministry Moments YouTube and subscribe. That way you'll make sure that you get this every week. Also, I would suggest now that you go to solvechurchproblems.com and subscribe there, because it's not just this broadcast, but many other things are available to you that'll really be of help to you on that broadcast. That's solvechurchproblems.com. So let me recommend that. Also, subscribe here. Go to Ministry Moments YouTube and subscribe. And Lord willing, every Friday, 3 o'clock, we'll be meeting with you with this broadcast. Now, today, I want to talk to you about elite leaders. Elite leaders. I remember Brother Hiles one time said to me and said to others that those who pastor the same church for 20 plus years are part of an elite group of men. And I believe that to be true, to stay with the ups and the downs and the good and the bad and all of that, but just stick with it and just stay with it, proves that you are a special leader, and grateful for that. Our country is beholden to you. And this is exciting to see these young men staying with it. And I had a broadcast on longevity. I would suggest you go back and listen to that one. There are only a few what I call phenoms in history of great Christian leaders. Dr. Jack Hyles was one of those in his 20s. But there are others who really don't hit their stride until they're in their 50s or late 50s. So go back and take a look at that longevity broadcast. I think you'll find it to some encouragement there. Now, I want to talk to you about elite leaders. I'm not talking about being mediocrity as the level for your leadership. I'm not saying longevity, that alone. There are some things that I've noticed about great men like Dr. Lee Robertson. I mean, who run 10,000 Sunday school? I mean, Dr. Tom Malone run 5,000 Sunday school. Dr. Jack Hyles, Dr. Curtis Hudson. All of these were elite men. Lester Roloff was an elite man. John Rawlings, although you're going to shut me off now, but with the BBF connection there towards the end, I found it a little bit rough, but I love the character John Rawlings. Now, God is not dead. God's still alive. God didn't love Jack Hyles more than he does you. God didn't love Curtis Hudson or Tom Malone, any of those men more than he does you. Now, God loved me more than you, but that's a different story. But let me give you some thoughts about what I've noticed from these great men, things that I learned as I travel with them, preach with them. I preach for them. They preach for me. We preach together. And there's some things that I learned from these great men, elite men of God, old school. Don't discount what happened in the 60s and the 70s and the early 80s. Don't discount it. Don't you discount it at all. It was real and amazing. Salvation of souls and church growth and amazing. You can call them dictators and cults, whatever you want to call them, but duplicate it if you think it's so easy. Anyway, I just thought of something, but I'm not going to say it. You'd be proud of me. Now, let me give you some thoughts about elite leaders of a man. Number one, here's what I learned about them. They read biographies of great men. They didn't read sermons. That's a shocker, isn't it? I remember one time the Sword asked us who were on the board there to say something about the Sword and so on. And I was talking to Brother Hyles. I said, do you read the sermons of the Sword? He said, no, I don't read them. And I said, really? He said, no, I don't read sermons. I read biographies. Now, that's what I learned from Dr. Lee Robertson. Lester Roloff was a very intelligent man. And read his book on his little pamphlet on fasting. Sound like a medical doctor. These were very intelligent men. But they read biographies of great men. They want to know the characteristics of great men. Number two, listen more than you speak. If you want to be that elite leader, don't be so self-absorbed that you don't realize everybody knows something you don't know. And thus they will become your teacher if you'll slow down enough and quit talking about yourself and start listening to them. You'd be amazed at what you can learn from other men of God if you got 2 ears and 1 tongue. There's a reason. Brother Hauser traveled, he'd pick up something and throw it in the back of his Bible. And when I got my nerve up, I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm collecting ideas. I'm going to go home, put it in a book, and sell it back to him. Uh, Elite leaders. You don't want to be just an average leader. You want to be one of that group like the 60s and 70s and 80s that produced great churches and great ministries. And by the way, they well, the house has over 1,000 preacher boys in America. Lee Robertson has over 1,000 missionaries around the world. These were men who produced something. You have this emerging church thing. Don't you get enamored with it. I know you got something you're offended by and hurt by, and I didn't see in the Bible where Joshua went around on an apology tour for Moses. I didn't see that at all. You young guys better be careful because you can learn from these great men of God of the past. So elite leaders, here's what I've observed. Number one, they read biographies of great men. Stonewall Jackson, I've mentioned this before in a broadcast, but I got a 2-volume set my wife bought me for Stonewall Jackson. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. And I mentioned Dr. Evans one time, and so I bought him a 2 set. He did not have it, and he loved it. So read biographies of great men. Listen more than you speak. Number 3, be goal-oriented as well as passion-oriented. Now, it's one thing you preach up a storm and be passive, not passive, but passionate about winning souls and building Sunday school classes and building a church and so on and so forth. That's good. You ought to be that way. But you've got to be goal oriented as well as passion oriented. You've got to be principle oriented. You've got to put everything at a numerical value. And when you do that and challenge yourself with that, don't compete. I never took Longview Baptist Temple and competed against First Baptist Church of Hammond. Never, never, never. I never, C.W. Fisk worked for me for some 7 years. I never compared my soul winning to his, the greatest soul winner I've ever known. Carl Hatch and him, probably the 2 best. Now, I'm just simply saying that you need to be goal oriented as well as passion oriented. Keep the passion. Keep the passion. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, then you're not going to succeed. But more than that, you're going to have to be goal oriented. You're going to have to put numerical value on things that you're doing, and then be goal oriented. I was talking to a pastor the other day who's got a growing church, great church. By the way, there's a lot of young men that are getting the job done, but he's grown 300%. Now, one of the things that he is doing, he is not just passion oriented. He's a soul winner, but he's goal oriented. And he said, "What do I need to look out for next?" I said, "Well, the history of it in my mind has been the 500 level, the 750 level, the 1,000 level. Those are levels that you're going to have a tough time breaking, but you've got to break those barriers. Most of it is up here. Most of it is just a lack of faith. Most of it is just not believing it can be done. I read in Brother Howe's book, Let's Go Soul Winning, where he said one point was go believing. Oh, it revolutionized my soul winning, go believing. So I went out believing I was going to come back with somebody being saved. And what a difference it made in my soul winning. So I said, number 1, read biographies of great men. That's what the great men of the past did. Number 2, listen more than you speak. Listen more than you speak. I look back now and my private times with Lee Robertson and Curtis Hudson and Tom Malone and Jack Hiles and those great men. Oh my! And I've noticed how they interacted with other pastors and so on. These guys listen more than they talk. So I just can't believe that. Well, it's true. Next, be goal oriented as well as passion oriented. Number 4, choose influence based on direction, not distance. I don't care who's running 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. If they're going the wrong direction, don't you take your wagon and get hooked onto their wagon. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. You choose influence based on direction, not distance. It's not distance. These guys in the past proved themselves by what they did and what they produced. And this generation has not produced anything yet. Not anything yet. So what you want to do is you want to choose your influence based on direction, not distance. A fellow challenged me one time about preaching with somebody. He didn't think it was in the same influence area that I wanted to be influenced by and people I ran with and so on. But I said to him, "Now wait a minute now. I preached for you when you were tagged with somebody that's not us, but you were going the right direction." I said, "Give me the same liberty with this other man of God. Allow me to help him. He's going the right direction." No, he's not where you are, but you weren't where you are now when I met you. So it's very important to choose influence based on direction, not distance. I don't care how big the ministry is. I don't care. I don't care. Billy Graham had a big ministry, but he ruined the orchard. Jack Hyles saved the orchard. John Rice saved the orchard. They they nurtured the orchard. But Billy Graham went around and created big crowds. But man, he had Catholics and Church of Christ and anything and everything on his platform, which was absolutely ruining the orchard. All right, elite leaders. Number one, I lost you on that one too, didn't I? Number one, read biographies of great men, listen more than you speak, be goal oriented as well as passion oriented. Number four, choose influence based on direction, not distance. Number five, learn from the great men of the past. Learn from the great men of the past. You let these great men fuel your fire. I suggest to a pastor this week that he reread Brother Howe's books once a year. Just reread them. Soul Winner's Fire by John Rice. You got to get that. I'm not sure if the sword even prints it anymore, but Soul Winner's Fire. You can go on eBay probably and find it. In fact, get my books. I'll autograph them when I die. You can sell them on eBay, make a lot of money. But learn from the great men of the past. Learn from them. Learn from them. So important to learn from them. Elmer Towns interviewed me one time years ago for the sword. And he asked me about influence. And I told him that the influences that I wanted were men who accomplished great things, but they produced not just great ministries, but young men of God. And everywhere I go, I run into men influenced by Dr. Lee Robertson. I run into men influenced by Dr. Tom Malone. That whole Ohio Valley region up there, my goodness, if it had not been for Midwestern College, Bible College up there, Ohio would not have some of the great churches that it has today. Now, I'm just saying, learn from the great men of the past. Number six, do not follow, don't miss this one, do not follow or mimic contemporaries. Do not follow or mimic contemporaries. Dr. Jack Hyles did not follow or mimic his contemporaries. Don't do it. They're walking beside you. They can't see any further than you can. And if you let some charisma get a hold of you, you'll end up going the wrong direction. Don't you be enamored by pretty boys. Don't you be enamored by these charismatic independent Baptist preachers who do you ooh and ah. Well, I don't care what they do in that pulpit, but I want to know, are they producing? Not just numbers, but don't mimic or find yourself following contemporaries. Don't do that. You look to the men of the past. All right. I said number one. I'm talking about elite leaders, far above the average. Elite leaders. They read biographies of great men. They listened more than they spoke. They were goal oriented as well as passion oriented. Number four, they chose influence based on direction, not distance. They had their own liberals of their day, just like you and I have contemporaries of our day that are liberal. Now, I'm just saying they had the same play, just different actors. All right. Number five, learn from the great men of the past. That's what they did. That's what they did. All right. Do not follow or mimic contemporaries. They did not follow or mimic the contemporaries of their day. All right. Live by schedule. Number seven, live by schedule. You've got 168 hours in a week. You put your life on paper. Put your life on paper. I had over 100 people that worked for me at our height, and I would every summer ask them to give me their schedules so I could help them because the classes are out, school's out, so on. When fall rolled around, I helped them with their schedule again. Holidays rolled around, I helped them with their schedule. I wanted to make sure their family was taken care of, their marriage was taken care of, their children, and that there was a balance in their schedule. The only way to do that is by scheduling it in that 168 hours. That is your world, and you make sure that it's scheduled. Have a daily to-do list. What you don't get done today, put it on top of the one for the next day. I said, number one, they read biographies of great, I'm talking about elite leaders now. They read biographies of great men. They listened more than they spoke. They were goal-oriented as well as passion-oriented. They chose influence based on direction, not distance. Number five, learn from the great men of the past. They did, and you can too. Do not follow or mimic contemporaries. They had their opportunities to show. They did not do it. Did not do it. Did not do it at all. Next, live by schedule. You got 168 hours in a week. You live by that schedule. Next, walk with God. This is very important. Walk with God early in the morning and late at night. Walk with God early in the morning and late at night. You cannot, when you go to that office, by the time I pull up in front of my office at 6 o'clock in the morning, I had 4 or 5 people stand outside the door waiting to see me. When I hit that office, my time was gone from there until closing of the day. It was gone. One thing after another thing after another thing after another thing. So if I'm going to walk with God, I'm going to do it early in the morning. 2 hours every morning. I spend time with God. 2 hours. I don't no TV, no tape, no music, no Alvin Martinez, no Ray Hart, no. Alone with God, God speaking to me speaking to him. 2 hours. Now, I learned to do that from Dr. Tom Smith, who started the church up north that I pastored. I followed the Smith boys around, Terry and Tom, great men. And Tom gave me this advice. He said, look, when you get down to that office, everybody else is going to put a demand on you. They're going to die. You can be a diehard battery. They're going to clamp onto your battery. And he was so right. So I get sermon thoughts early. I get a sermon every day, sermon thought in the morning. I put a title in the back of my wide margin Cambridge Bible, give it a date. I put a little skinny outline on it, and those sermons grow. But you got to do that early in the morning, late at night, because they're going to take your time. They're going to, and they should. That's what you're there for. But you're going to have to understand you're going to have to spend time early in the morning and late at night with God. That's all. You better get in the routine of it. Now, if you want to be an elite leader, if you want to be, now, if you just want to be status quo and you just want to just be have mediocrity as your motto for your ministry, that's fine. That's all right. But if you really want to do something for God, you're going to be an elite leader. I mean, let's go over it again. Read biographies of great men. Listen more than you speak. Be goal-oriented as well as passion-oriented. Number 4, learn from the great men of the past. Reread their books. Number 6, do not follow or mimic contemporaries. Next, live by schedule. Next, walk with God early in the morning and late at night. If you'll do that, that cream does rise to the top. But it's up to you. It's up to you. You've got to decide right now, am I just going to be an average leader or am I going to be an elite leader? Oh, our country's in desperate. And by the way, there are young men who are rising to the top. They're getting the job done. Oh, no, you won't like them because they're soul oriented and numbers. All they do is talk about numbers. You better start putting some numbers on something and challenge yourself if you want to do something great for God. Okay. Surely I've made you mad somewhere in this broadcast. Welcome to Ministry Moments YouTube. Every Friday at 3 o'clock, this broadcast takes place. Go to Ministry Moments YouTube and subscribe now. Subscribe. And then you go to solvechurchproblems.com and subscribe there. There's a lot of extras there. Over 3,000 questions with answers and so on in there. And a lot. There's just so much in that solvechurchproblems.com. If I were a young preacher, I'm telling you, I'd subscribe. And tweet. Do you tweet? I don't know if you tweet. Every day, I put a ministry idea on. Do I tweet it? I don't know what you. Anyway, it goes to LinkedIn, it goes to Facebook and all that. I don't know how all that stuff works. But I put a ministry idea every day. So if you want to subscribe to my tweet account, I don't know how you do it, but do it. And then you have a quote a day. I have a quote every day of the world and try to encourage you and so on. Now, if you don't like something that I post a weekly blog on solvechurchproblems.com and you want me to fight with you about it, I'm not going to do it. So some of you get upset with me because I won't answer your emails. I'm not going to. I'm not going to end up in a debate with you about it. Okay, look, I'm sorry. I can't help it because I'm right. Well, that'll hear some of you all. I can't help it. I'm not going to debate it with you. So I'm going to state it, and then that's fine, so on. Now, if we're together somewhere and you want to discuss it and talk about it, I'd be glad to talk to you about it. But I'm not going to get on that stupid internet and get into a dogfight with somebody on that internet. I am not going to do it. I refuse to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'd be glad to talk to you about it in person. Come to one of my meetings if you want to. That'd be great. And we'll take some time together. God bless you. Ministry Moments, YouTube, subscribe. You'll get it every week, 3 o'clock broadcast, every Friday, Central Time. God bless you. And don't forget, soul winning tomorrow. You make sure you go soul to get somebody lined up for Sunday morning.